And we're on King Connections podcast. I'm your host, King, and welcome, listening audience. Today I'm joined by Jess Peabody. So, Jess, thank you for joining the King Connections podcast today.
Oh, I am so thankful to be here, King. It's just wonderful to be connected with you and to be having this conversation today. I can't think of many better ways to spend the next half hour or so.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and your investment of energy in joining me today.
Yeah.
So my first question I want to get started with is really, I would say it's my context defining question, so to speak. And that is, what is your spiritual energy number? And what I mean by that is 0 being life sucks to 10 being life is awesome. What would you say your number is today?
Yeah, I'm putting myself at a 10 today. And I've certainly had my journey in different energy levels over time, but I am just feeling lit up and nourished right now in terms of the work I get to do and the people that I have in my life. And so it's feeling really high up there. And it's been some self-study and some work, over time to really get myself on the higher end of that spectrum. There have been moments where I would have put myself low, but right now, this time in 2020 and yeah, I just say right up at the top.
Excellent. The reason I asked that question, I started asking the question years back when I would hold meetings or when I do my presentations to get a sense of the audience, because I believe that folks who are 2s or 3s are really the meeting won't go well. The energy won't be there. They won't be as engaged. And when folks are 8, 9s, and 10s, and I know that we can that's where we can produce miracles from our co-creating through the process. And I like what you said when you said, I put myself, because a lot of people don't realize it's a choice. I mean, life comes at us in a variety of situations, right? But I tell folks, I never choose to see. Every day I ask myself that question, and I choose not to be less than a 10. The days where I get challenged, I look at and ask myself, what can I do to make sure I stay at 10, right? Because it's not once I'm there forever. It's a constant journey of discovery of just life in general. So thank you for indulging me with that.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for the question. Yeah.
And so my first question to begin our session would be, so what do you see as your purpose in life?
I, really had the pleasure a couple years ago, King, to work with a coach, exceptionally talented coach, and actually a dear friend, Steve Havel, to spend some time defining this and create my purpose statement. And it's fun. I revisit this on occasion of what I created maybe 4 or 5 years ago. That does it still stand true for me? And I'd say it does. It's there might be some things that I've added over time, but I'll just share that this is something that feels so deep in my soul. And really that is that I feel my purpose in life is to be an expression of love and presence and curiosity, and being out in the world with an open heart and really a mind of neutrality, because what that allows me to do is engage in service and contribution with sort of courageous and unbounded love, led by heart in that way. And really want in embodying and leading into that, what it's allowing me to do is create space for people to connect, for people to own their power, and to contribute in a meaningful way, or whatever way that they're meant to contribute in the world. That's really why I think I'm on the planet, is to create that meaningful connection in that space.
I love that answer, and that's one of the wonderful things about being involved in this movement and being connected to folks who have this higher purpose and want to bring about change in the world, and understand the importance of, there's a quote by Muhammad Ali that says, your life, I might actually be misquoting him, but your life is the rent you pay for being here on this earth. And when you really understand that you are only here for a temporary purpose in this physical shell, that it should be in a form of service in some form of context.
Yeah.
Then to me, that's in alignment with how nature and everything else is operating. And I believe you have more fulfillment when you tap into that higher purpose, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I do. I think there is something in that sense of service, or how do I work and contribute to the broader ecosystem, or holistically, like what's happening in the world, right? And I think there are unique expressions of that, right? And just spending the time and holding that mirror up and thinking about, well, what's my unique expression? How do I want to show up for this finite time?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Now, I know that you've been involved in the conscious capitalism movement for years, and this is a question I always ask individuals because that term conscious leader has been thrown around so much,
Mm-hmm.
right, to the point where it's almost people don't really even understand the consciousness of that in front of that word leader because it's been overused. And so my question now is, with your experience in conscious capitalism movement as well as your own self-discovery, how would you define a conscious leader?
I love this. Has evolved for me over time too, King. I think my instinct in the past would be that servant leader, right? Which I also think gets thrown around sort of maybe as much as the conscious leader thing. So, there's a part of servant leadership that I really connect to, this idea of, understanding the role and creating an environment for other people to thrive, and systems for people to be engaged and be successful and drive to do great things out in the world. And whether that's mentoring or guiding, and really coming from that behind the pack approach, like there's something that I still really connect to about servant leadership and conscious leadership having a relationship. But I think what has shifted for me over time is also this idea that conscious leaders are truly constantly doing their own work and holding, again, I'll use that analogy of holding the mirror up, focusing on deepening self-awareness, focusing and examining how are they impacting people and the world, how are they moving about the world, and really being curious and questioning that, and constantly stretching themselves in that space. So embracing the idea of growth mindset and always learning, and there's never going to be an endpoint to exceptional leadership. Like that is a journey that we're constantly on, right? But being committed to say, I guess it's really that consciousness piece of, am I conscious about the decisions that I'm making in this world? How does that impact the people and the work that we're doing? And I think the other element of it for me, King, is really being willing to evolve and also bring their full hearts and full selves into the work, into how they're connecting with others, embracing their own intersectionality and the different things that have influenced who they are in the world. Being able to accept duality is another one. There's so much gray in what we do. There's very little absolute, right? And then being driven to be a force for love. And I think love has been, sadly, in a lot of business, like stricken from the lexicon. Like we can't talk about love, but I think truly conscious leaders bring that sense of love and this commitment to enriching humanity and the planet. So there's a lot of layers to it for me, but I think it has shifted over time. So in the past, it might have been just that servant of what are we doing for others, and now it's also how do we reflect on our own way of moving about the world.
Absolutely. And I love, I'm going to use that, a force for love, being a force for love. I think that's key. And imagine if that was everybody's most dominating thought, because I want to be a force for love, how the world would be different, how we would operate. Or imagine if 30 people you connected with on a daily basis, you interacted with, thought on that same level. And that's really what my goal is to kind of build a tribe, I call it connection, intelligent tribe of conscious leaders who think that way. How can I be a force for love and challenge themselves with that on a daily basis, whether it's in some form of service, writing, coaching, speaking, anything that drive them in that context.
Yes. Yeah. And love champions. Let's bring it over. Yeah. Absolutely.
And my next question, this is one of my favorite questions. I have several favorite questions of these questions. And that would be, what are you most grateful for?
Hands down, it's my family. King, I'll get probably emotional when I talk about this. And I'm going to define family as certainly my biological family, the family that I have been really fortunate to be born into, and then also the family that I've chosen, like my partner, or friends, or members of my community that I'm on this life's journey with. You know, I step back and I just am so deeply thankful for the richness that they bring into my days and into the world. And I say into the world because as I think about each individual that is part of that family unit, uh, I see them all having this commonality of being again driven by values of love. So I'm obviously really compelled to surround myself with people who that's at their core. It's also care and connection and exploration and inquiry and challenge and impact. Like all the people I think of are really deeply embedded in that, and they have their own unique expressions of that in the world. But I think about, wow, how lucky am I to have this amazing group of people and also be born into a family that is driven by that I have remained deeply close with and in pretty unique ways. I'd say that a lot of people, sort of say, wow, your family is really tight. It's like, yeah, we are. We really are. We really love each other and we love to be together. And I know that's something that I've been incredibly lucky to have.
It's truly a blessing. That's a wonderful answer. Each day I wake up and I go through what I call my gratitude moment. I say all the things that I'm grateful for, and it really conditions my day and helps me understand that, as business leaders, we get caught up with objectives, and deadlines, and proposals, and meetings. And then we think about if we have one that's really big on the horizon, that's where we focus our energy and our attention on. And doing that gratitude moment, it just really helps me get centered and say, well, no, I'm grateful for my sight, my life, grateful for my family. So as you talk about that, it just keeps me remembering that and humbles me that it's not about these next project or this next goal or this next deal. It's really about just being happy to be grateful to even wake up and be able to see and hear and have love in my immediate family, as you say, and people I'm building with. So thank you for that answer.
Yeah.
Now, the organization that you work with, the people piece, I'm curious to know, it's a kind of a two-part question. What would you say, what is the mission of the people piece? And then kind of what is your role and responsibilities?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I am so passionate about this work that we're doing. So our mission really from the beginning has been focused on supporting values-driven organizations to really unleash the potential of their people and their culture and their teams, and doing that by way of effective people development strategies and programs. So I'd say that that's a greater mission of how do we shine a light and create systems and structures and opportunities for the humans within an organization to thrive. So that's a big piece of that. And I think over the last couple of years where things have evolved even more, and maybe it's inspired by the pandemic or just by the people that we brought onto the team, that there's also this shared mission and collective passion to bring humanity back into the workplace. And what I mean about that is, creating the space for, again, connection, empathy on teams or within organizations, ways to develop and demonstrate genuine care for the people that we're working with, supporting leaders to have authentic and honest conversations, all the ways of how do we move away from maybe the compartmentalization that used to happen, or leaving ourselves at the proverbial door when we start the workday, into we're humans at work. So how do we bring that humanity, whether it's the messiness, where it's the beauty, where it's the different layers of complexity, like acknowledging all of that is within this relationship in a way. We're in relationship when we're in the workplace. How do we honor that and be with that, rather than saying, oh, no, I'm leaving that at the door. I'm just going to come and execute and, be a cog in the system. So I think that's something we're passionate about. And that's been beautiful to see that unfold more and more. And then in terms of my role, I'm the director of people and programs at the People Piece, and that means I get to do a couple really exciting things. One is I lead our highly talented and committed team of strategists and facilitators and trainers. We have coaches, we have instructional designers, we've got project managers, and leading that team that does our work with our clients specifically. And then I also play a key role in design and development and the implementation of our people development solutions. So on any given day, that might look like I'm, helping to lead an organizational development strategy session with a group of people or HR leaders, or I might be facilitating a workshop with managers, new managers, and coaching them on how to have crucial conversations with their teams. So I get to do that direct work with people within organizations. And then the last piece of my role on the people side, that people director, is I work really closely with our founder and CEO and other partners within the team to create our own internal people and culture initiatives and strategy, because we're at this place where our team has grown and we're finally large enough where we actually need to develop our own internal processes and solutions and strategy, because we're now a team that's on nearly 20, including some contractors that we work with. So that's really fun to now start to apply the things that we do with our clients to our own team, and we get to be the testing ground for a lot of those new innovations and progressive ways of thinking about how do we organize and support our people to thrive. So I love that aspect of my work as well.
I can see that in your body language, your energy, your answer, your enthusiasm, that you definitely love your work and enjoy what you do.
And I do. I really do.
One of the things that I found that was interesting in doing my research on you and the company and work that you do, came across a section around custom solutions. I just kind of really kind of have you unpack that. So what are some of the custom solutions designed to help value-driven organizations develop outstanding employees, leaders, managers, teams, and organizational cultures?
Yeah, we have a whole variety. I think what's been really interesting and exciting about our work over the years, King, is that whenever we start to form a partnership with a new client, the first thing that we do is do a deep dive into their unique strengths and opportunities and challenges as an organization, because there is always going to be something unique, that secret sauce, or also what's sort of underlying their successes and their challenges. And then we say, all right, how do we tailor and customize programs that have been proven and tested, but to their specific people or cultural needs? And while we don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's really true, we hold true to that. After working with many clients over the years, whether it's at the People Piece or the team members we brought on who have many years of experience in the space, there are common themes that emerge that most organizations struggle with. So we do a lot of work in the space of comprehensive long-term people development strategies, helping what we would call late-stage startups who are crossing the culture chasm, where they've been able to sort of self-organize or organically organize and think about people development or the culture in that organic way. Now they need to be intentional. So we will support them in their thinking of what's that long-term strategy look like, and how do we look at holding on to the DNA and the special things within your organization and help to continue to manifest that as you grow as a company. So that's one particular way that we support and work with clients. Another, we do a lot in the manager and leadership development space. So it can be working with new managers, or even managers who have been in this people management space for a long time, but helping them think about how do they shift from maybe a technical leadership role where they were driving that project into now you're leading people. And that's a really different skill set, right? So developing specific skills and mindset and behaviors that are going to support them to drive engagement and results and the success of their team. So we do a lot of work with managers on that. And that could be things like having those crucial conversations at work, or how do you motivate and coach employees or people on your team. And then with leaders, often we're seeing they're struggling with things like navigating ambiguity, complexity, uncertainty, all the things that we've been deeply embedded in, especially it feels like the last couple of years, right? Supporting them with skills and tools to do that, or deepening trust on a virtual remote team, integrating values into business operations, things like that. So that's some of the work that we do. We also work with teams, and those will be intact teams that maybe just need to amplify their communication or collaboration, and giving tools and skills and ways to do that as a collective team. Or maybe they're navigating a reorganization or new leadership coming on. How do they move through the different stages of team development to become that successful, high-performing team? So, and the list goes on, but those are some of the key ways that I see us really consistently being pulled in to work with organizations in those different areas.
You know, I listened to you lay out kind of some of the assessments and work, some of the frameworks that you all do with these organizations. And, you know, that's really some of the things that I feel are the most fulfilling part of what we do as coaches and consultants within this conscious space.
Yes.
Helping other leaders to develop their purpose and get their employees engaged and aligned with their mission and their leaders' original values and core principles. I think that's that work to me is, it's incredible. And you look back and you say, this is what I do all day. You know, I get to work with these incredible people who really want to make a difference in the world. So I definitely feel your enthusiasm about that. My next question, that actually segues into my next question is, so within that context, what drives you the most in your daily responsibilities?
You know, I'd say first, I get to work with the most incredible, talented team that is just loving and wants to do extraordinary things in the world. So it's just what you're talking about, King, is waking up every day and saying, I get to work and partner with these people. I mean, that just lights me up. The other piece, I think when I really drill down, some of the most meaningful things that drive me is the stories from participants in our programs who have said, you know, how something that we have been exploring with them or teaching or uncovering with them has been applied either in the workplace or really at home. And it's those at home moments, King, there's something about that for me of, you know, I feel passionate about creating these human-centered workplaces and creating teams and organizations that can thrive. And then when I have that new manager who says, hey, Jess, that coaching model or that conversation model that we explored, that we practiced and was really hard, I just did that with my family member. I did that with my child. Like, it is shaping the way that I'm having difficult conversations with my child at home. Like, that is the gold to me. We're able to transcend. And we're not only doing this work in workplaces, but it's being taken home. And that's, you know, I think there's probably hundreds and hundreds of stories like that I may never hear. But hearing that, you know, once a month or whatever it might be, that's the stuff that gets me out of bed every morning. So I'm like, this is our life that we're talking about and our relationships that we hold closest and most dear. So if I can play some role in supporting people in that way, it's really moving.
Absolutely. I mean, that's really sets the context for understanding that leadership is a sacred responsibility because of the fact you're impacting not only the lives of the people you're working directly with, but the lives of their loved ones, their families, and so on and so forth. And it's saying that it's a responsibility that you have to hold dear and approach with humility, competence, value, and love, as you say, being that force for that. What are some of the key mistakes you see that small micro businesses make constantly with regards to leadership and people development?
There's a couple that kind of rise to the top. I think the first would be, I mentioned earlier, the culture chasm, King. And I think one of the mistakes I see is just kind of waiting too long to create intentional culture or waiting until something is broken. You know, so there is the benefit of when you're a smaller organization, there's more often ease in the system where you don't need to be intentional. It just kind of naturally emerges of what the culture is. but then we'll often find resting on the laurels of that sort of organic and what's naturally developed, and not saying, is this exactly actually what we want to be creating? So spending that time early on, even in the organization's inception, to think about what's important to us, what are those values, what do we want the people experience to be, and not trying to do that 5 years later. I think that's one mistake I see. Another is sort of the belief that short interventions are going to lead to long-lasting behavior change. So we'll talk with new organizations who want us to come in and do maybe that workshop on effective communication, and thinking, all right, we're going to train our people on how to effectively communicate, and they're just going to all go do it, right? and I think we would love for it to be that easy, but there's data and studies about needing to take a more comprehensive approach if we're really looking for that behavior change. There's going to need to be repeated practice. There's going to need to be systems and a culture that's supporting that change. So it's not just the idea of we want more effective communication, but are we really examining, what's happening at a systemic level to allow that to happen? And then also giving people the avenue to practice over and over again. Because we'll often say, coming to a workshop or doing work with us is like going to that personal trainer, where you can have that personal trainer teach you how to use all the weights and the equipment, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going to be ready to go do the Ironman. It's that you have to go and create regular habits and practice around those things. And
Absolutely.
so you're going to need to create an avenue for those habits to be formed and built. So I think that's something that we often see. And I could go on and on, but I think the last one that I will highlight is failing to really examine how senior leaders are impacting culture and the employee experience. I think often, we think of senior leaders have been in the workforce for a long time. They have likely risen up and had a lot of different experience. But is that senior leader doing that examination, that consciousness piece that we were talking about earlier, of holding the mirror up and saying, I still have ways to learn and grow. And it's not just about equipping our managers or our people to be better at these skills or embody these behaviors we're wanting to see, but how am I influencing that too? Often it's sort of I've been doing this long enough. I'm written off. I don't need to focus on this. I think there is, that's a common mistake, that there isn't examination or support happening at that level of leadership as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you talk about that, I think that's critical and key, that growth-minded understanding how to effectively be a leader, as you say. And that's a great analogy to use about the personal trainer, and then you can get the instructions, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're ready to go out here and, as you say, do the Ironman without daily incremental changes that you're doing and habits you're instilling in your life on a regular basis. My next question is going to sit around, and I want to set the context for it. My work that I do, I'm a systems thinking person, so I'm very structured and strategic in how I approach things, particularly at this stage of my life when it comes to building relationships. I call myself King Connections because I believe in making great connections with individuals, different than networking, obviously. You connect with somebody, it's a deeper, richer conversation. And so then we go back to the original question about conscious leadership. So I like to connect with conscious leaders. So I understood if I needed to connect with conscious leaders, I have to first define, for me, what does a conscious leader mean to me? Mm-hmm. And I came up with 8 key characteristics that I want to share with you. And it's not that I live these every day, but it's my true north that I actually walk and hold myself accountable to, and which is, number 1, being principle-centered, being value-driven, action-oriented, results-focused, growth-minded, servant leader, accountability acceptor, and having a grateful spirit. Mm-hmm. So those are my 8 core virtues. And I look for some of those in other people I connect with, right? And so for me, that's kind of how my methodology and for making connections. So I'm curious to know, do you have any kind of key characteristics you look for when establishing connections when some people reach out to you, or you may want to reach out to someone else as well?
Yeah, I'll keep going back. I might be beating a dead horse here, but that sense of love. I think it's really wanting to be that champion for love out in the world. And also, I think the curiosity, again, the allowing for duality or many answers to be correct, or just being able to be in this messy, complex human existence, and just bringing a level of curiosity to that is what I look for. And I feel like, oh, when I meet someone who is bringing that love and that curiosity, I know we're going to have a really good connection, because we're driven by some of those shared values of that's what's moving us and projecting us, through this life experience in the world.
Excellent, excellent. What would be a great connection for you?
There is a teacher that I love to listen to. His name is Josh Corda. He is sort of the guiding teacher of an organization called Dharma Punks, which is it's pretty interesting organization that is very much focused on mindfulness. But I love the work that he does. I'm inspired by it because he is integrating mindfulness and also neuropsychology. And so it's this beautiful intersection of, the practices that I think more and more people are becoming aware of, how it helps us in presence and again, being in this human existence, but also what's happening in the brain. Like, how does the brain work? The neurology and the neuroscience behind that, I just find incredibly interesting. And I would love to connect with him and pick his brain, for hours on end, because I think so much of what he talks about and explores, I see show up in the workplace and the work that I get to do, and just being able to go even deeper on that would be amazing to connect with him.
Excellent, excellent. So of all the things you've accomplished in your life, what would you say has been the most rewarding?
I think it is those little stories, King. It's the nuggets of people saying, this work has impacted me. That aha moment, it could have been that 5-minute conversation that's transcended into how they're moving about the world and how they're interacting with the people in their life. I think that is, again, the thing that if I'm on my deathbed, I'll look back and say, I was able to contribute in that way. And then I think the other that I've connected with more and more when I think about legacy is really being able to see people and acknowledge humanity. And that might be, the barista, and really saying good morning and looking them in the eye and acknowledging their name, and feeling that maybe minute human connection, but just for that moment. Or someone I'm starting a new partnership with, I think really seeing them as a human versus a means to an end. I think that feels like an accomplishment too, because we can be so wrapped up in our own internal narrative or experience where we forget to see those around us, and it's something that I just always want to drive towards and embody and live.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I notice again, you always have a smile. Every time I met you, you always have such a bright, beautiful smile, and you always have such a warm, positive disposition about yourself. So I'm curious to know, what morning rituals do you kind of go through to kind of keep yourself in that positive state of mind?
Yeah. I am very fortunate. I live in a really beautiful place. I live in Sonoma, California. And one of the rituals is spending some time outside every morning. And it's been, thankfully, the weather here pretty much year round allows for that. But just to be outside and have breakfast and breathe the air deeply and listen to the birds and feel the sun on my face it's just how I commit to starting my day. And I've also begun, this is a recent ritual, King, but I used to start the day, I think like many of us do, of listening to the news. And I did that because I want to stay in the know. I want to be aware of what's happening. But I realized I was taking the angst and the pain and the suffering and the stories from the news into the day. And I said, I need to shift this. And so a couple months ago, I switched it. And now I listen to an inspiring podcast in the morning while I'm getting ready. And And I love Brene Brown's work, of course, Adam Grant. I mean, there's many that I've just tuned into that every morning I'm getting inspired by this new idea that I think about, well, how do I want to bring that into the workday or into what I'm doing? And that's just really shifted me to be able to be in that positive state of mind.
Excellent, excellent. And down to my last two questions, which are two of my favorite questions. And that would be, is there a king connection you would like to meet? When I mean king connection, I'm not necessarily playing on my name or my company's name. I define the individual who, them adding you to their inner circle because of their influence, whether it be financial, social capital, the success in life in general, someone you really admire. They would add you to their inner circle will change your life exponentially from that. And the reason I asked that question because I developed what I consider to be a process for getting connected to that person. So when you do meet them, you're not meeting them as a fan, where they're here and you're here. You're meeting them as a co-creator or someone that can bring value to them. Right? It's a process I developed. So I'm curious, like for example, mine would be Magic Johnson. And so he'd be a great mentor, coach, advisor, but more importantly, I believe I could help him with some of the things he's working with within his business. So who would be a king connection for you?
Well, I'm shooting for the stars here, but I would say Brene Brown. You know, I think I've always been inspired by her work, and I was fortunate to hear her speak years ago, not long after her most viewed TED Talk came out. But the more that I get exposure to her work, and just I'd say generally the people that she interviews, the people that she connects with, you know, I feel just that common set of shared values and this passion for this type of work, and you know, feel not only would I learn a tremendous amount from her, but also I think this organization, what I've been able to experience, we're getting some of those day-to-day sort of microscope views of what's happening in organizations and with leaders. So I think we could bring a lot of value just connecting with her on this work.
Okay, excellent. And then my last question would be, what book would you recommend that has either influenced you the most in your life or just maybe just influenced you the most this week?
Yeah, I would say the book that I gift most and really changed how I experience life is a book called The Deepest Acceptance. And it's by an author, Jeff Foster. And the idea is this radical awakening from ordinary life. And I think, King, what it helps me do, it was on my nightstand for years. I think my mom had gifted it to me. And I happened to open it and start it in the moment that I needed it most. And it's about how do we be our most full aware selves, again, in this human existence, in this finite amount of time that we have on this planet. And he does a lot of talk about the stories we tell ourselves or the projections or the things that we think we need to accomplish to feel fulfilled in life, and really stripping that away and saying, how do I be present and aware in these moments that might feel, you know, ordinary or just part of the day-to-day, and really see the beauty and be in that presence. So love it. He's a really inspiring thought leader and writer, and I would recommend it to everybody.
Deeper Acceptance.
The Deepest Acceptance.
Deepest Acceptance.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Jess. I appreciate you for being my guest on the King Connections podcast, and I love the energy you bring, and I believe my listening audience will find that as well. And I want to thank you again for your investment of time and energy with joining us today.
Oh, it's been such a pleasure, King, and I'm so glad that you are out in the world doing this work and sharing the love and being a champion for connection. Yeah, we can be that tribe and those warriors for love together.
Absolutely. Thank you. Now, listening audience, again, this has been another session for King Connections podcast. Thank you all, and wish you all a blessed and productive remaining part of your day.